Thank you all for coming today. I'd like to introduce our first two speakers, Reverend Julyi Wilson-Black and Rabbi Sonny Schnitzer.
I didn't know there was a pecking order. Thank you all for coming out today and supporting these young people and by being present for them. And thank you all for coming and having the courage to begin this program, to begin this dialogue, this speech, this way of speaking and listening, which is very different than what so many of you have known at home. I just came back 6 weeks ago from Eretz Israel on what's called a dual narrative program. And one of the things we heard from everyone when we were in Ramallah, when we were in Yerushalayim, when we were in the West Bank, when we were in other cities, is that there is so little contact between Israelis and Palestinians, even within Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews, that the societies just don't interact. I was talking recently with Aaron Schneer, who many of you know as Father David, who's a rabbi here in our area. Aaron grew up here. He runs a program called Heartbeat, and Heartbeat with musicians, young Arab and Israeli Jewish musicians, has put together a series of bands, and as part of their musical interactions, they also have similar dialogues. We were talking, and we did some math in our head, and we were thinking all the people who have been touched by Family Circle, all the people who have been touched by New Story Leadership, all of the people who have been touched by other dialogue programs, and at best, it might be 10,000 people. And we thought about that for a minute and said, literally, pardon the expression, it's spit in the ocean. But it has to be done, because there is no other way to change the paradigm than to begin to understand that each of us has the same desires, the same needs. All of us are propagandized. All of us are told stories that are not our story, and so you're here to discover your story and share it with us. So we thank you very much for doing that. We applaud you, and the only way we're going to change this paradigm is to do more. So please, friends, open up your checkbooks, open up your hearts, and make it possible to double or even triple this program. It's still spit in the ocean, but eventually you get an ocean of spit.
I'm Julyi Wilson-Black, the interim associate pastor here at Bradley Hills Presbyterian Church. And we have been sharing this space with Bethesda Jewish congregation for over 40 years. Is that right, Sonny? Okay.
50.
Almost 50 years. And so during that time, we have, by sharing space together, enabled people in our communities to also share their stories together and share our vision together for a more peaceful and just community. I am struck today by the timing of this event as we consider the power that stories have in our lives. Last night, the jury returned a verdict in the Trayvon Martin case that so many people in this country have been following. Most of us who have been following the case, no matter who we sympathize with, have constructed a story in our heads about what transpired the day that Trayvon Martin was killed. We've pieced together a version of the story from the bits and pieces of evidence we've heard, and where there have been blanks, we've filled in the story with our assumptions and our stereotypes. We don't know the whole story, nor can we. Neither could the jury know the whole story, since Trayvon Martin was not there to tell his side. Our assumptions and stereotypes take a greater part in our thinking and muddle our thinking when we haven't heard each other's stories. I have to wonder if this tragedy could have been avoided if George Zimmerman had known more about, or had been curious to find out more about, Trayvon Martin's story. Here was Zimmerman meeting a stranger, someone he didn't know at all, and yet he appears to have assumed a great deal about him in order to fill in the blanks of his ignorance. What if he had known more about his story, or the story of kids like him, or if he had been more curious to ask? Likewise, if Trayvon Martin had understood more about George Zimmerman's story, could he have acted in some way to de-escalate the confrontation? We don't know, but we do know that it is easier for all of us to assume we know each other's stories than to ask. It is easier to take for granted that what we've seen on TV or read in the newspaper about people who are different from us is all we need to know. But in this country and everywhere where people of different backgrounds coexist, we need to actually meet each other face to face and hear each other's stories if we want to truly understand each other. So I commend our speakers, as Rabbi Sonny did, for coming here today and having the courage to share your stories with each other and with us. And I also commend you for coming to hear them, so that we may better understand not only the challenges of those who live in Israel and Palestine, but also the challenges we face here in this country as we all seek peace and justice for ourselves and our neighbors.
Thank you, both of you. Now I'd like to introduce the founder and executive director of New Story Leadership, Paul Costello.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Rabbi, for your wonderful words and your wonderful introduction. And thank you, all of you, for coming out on this steamy, hot Sunday afternoon. Thank God the air conditioning is working inside of here. My name is Paul Costello. You might tell by my accent that I'm not exactly local. I come from Australia originally, but for the last 15 or 20 years, somehow or other, by a series of accidents of grace, I have been involved in working with amazing young people from Northern Ireland and Ireland, from South Africa, and now more recently in the last 4 years, wonderful, amazing people from Israel and Palestine, who you're going to get the chance to listen to in a moment or so. I think my task is just to tell you a little bit about what New Story Leadership is. I see some wonderful familiar faces here in the congregation this afternoon, but I also see some wonderful new faces. So just to not presume you understand too much about what the program is. New Story Leadership is premised upon a theory of change which says if you can change the story, you can change the world. And the method of changing the story is to bring 5 of the most brilliant young Israeli leaders, 5 of the most brilliant Palestinian leaders, take a bow, and bring them to a Washington summer that's hot and steamy and intense and crazy, and have them live together with host families, like some from these congregations, living side by side. They work together in work placements or have work and professional experience and exposure together, side by side, Israeli and Palestinian. Sometimes we have the Palestinian working for an Israeli group and the Israeli working for a Palestinian group, just to mix them up. They learn the American story, so on 4th of July, all these young people joined 30 Irish young people and 20 South African young people on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and watched the fireworks as a sort of culminating activity so they could understand the American story. And then today marks a shift in the program as they help each other and coach each other tell their story to you. And the reason why they need to understand what the American story is, because that's how you're going to hear them. You're going to hear them through the lens of being proud Americans. So that's what we're going to initiate today. And last week we had a conference at SICE. If you're around on July the 18th, we will be speaking before members of Congress. If you're around on July the 25th, hopefully we will be speaking at the French Embassy. So they will be speaking their word, having their voice heard in the context of America and American decision makers. But let me just conclude by 3 quick things. I think NSL has been around for 4 years. And I love what the rabbi said about it's just a little drop in the bucket. We could do so much more. But 3 things make this stand out, I think. There are a lot of fantastic programs, and I'm sure you know all about them, that work with teenagers and young kids. Give them a summer camp or a summer holiday, and they're fantastic. But we feel we're one of the few, if only the only one, that dares to take on the challenge of young adult professionals. These are not kids, and this is not a summer camp. This is a very serious, rigorous, challenging program, and these young people mean business. None of them are novices. None of them, this is their first program, no way. These are the most extraordinary sample of young Israelis and Palestinians you're ever likely to get in one room at one time, and as you'll hear in their stories, all of them are selected on this program because they're proven leaders. But our job is to build for them a platform of performance that will allow them to break through to a whole new level. That's our job. That's the first thing. This is a serious program, it's not a kiddie program, and these are young adults on the cusp of their career. They've already made dramatic changes in the world. The second thing is, and as Rabbi said, that building of trust and dialogue is so important that, as the Rabbi would know and as the Reverend would know, how much more talking can there be before something changes? And so this year particularly, it's been talk, but it's also walk. And these young people, and they're going to tell you, have come with a project for change. As a result of what their experience is in Washington, something is going to be different on the ground in Israel and Palestine in the next 6 months. This is just, our patience for dialogue is gone. And the reason for that, as I've said before, is last year and this year, we're taking these young people out of war zones and tragically sending them back into war zones. Mason has to fly back to Cairo in 3 weeks, with a bit of luck, whether she can get into Gaza or not, if the Rafah gate is open or closed. I mean, this is serious stuff, and these are lives at stake. And so the third thing, it's about young people, it's about action, and I think that leads me to the final thing I want to say is that I think we have a real sense of urgency. I know that Secretary Kerry has been shuttling back and forth. He too has a real sense of urgency. We shouldn't be having to do this for the next 20 years, because that will be the waste of another generation. It's Martin Luther King who said, that fallacy of gradualism. No. The revolution has to happen now, and we have to empower a generation to step up with the courage to do something. The time for talking is over. And so when you listen to them, you're going to be inspired. These are an amazing group of young people. But I want you to do more than just be inspired. They're going to invite you. They're going to invite you to be part of their story. And desperately do we as NSL need you to be part of our story in terms of funding, resources, mentorship, host families, the whole works. As Rabbi said, we could scale this program up for 100 young people a year or 200 young people a year. As it is, we barely struggle sometimes to do it for 10. So we are really in the situation of saying, if we're serious about this, it's time now we've got some serious funding and we've got some serious resources. So it's with great pleasure now I hand back to Robert, who's going to facilitate the presentation and let you listen to these amazing young people. Be inspired, but go up to them in the break, take out your business card, take out your checkbook, Take out your hand and say to them, they need you in the story they're about to tell you now.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome. Special thank you to Pastor Julyi Wilson-Black and Rabbi Sonny Schnitzer. My name is Robert Hips. I am a member of the management team for New Story Leadership. I am from Kansas, and I became involved with New Story Leadership as an intern last semester through the Graduate Gateway program at American University. I have a bachelor's in international relations and a master's in public administration from Clark University, and I'm going to be moderating this panel this afternoon. The way it's going to work is that each of these students is going to come up and speak for approximately 3 to 4 minutes, and at the end of that, we're going to set aside about 15 minutes for questions and answers. Brief note about the question and answer session. These students are students. They're not acting as representatives of any political party, any state, or any religion. They are not necessarily qualified to answer any questions about political issues or religious issues that fall outside the scope of their own experience. Also, at this time, please, if you have not already done so, turn off or silence your cell phone. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Basil Corey.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Basil Corey. I'm from Bethlehem, Palestine. I'm 22 years old, studying at Bethlehem University, Computer Information System. Well, the first question I've been asked many times in the last few days is a Palestinian if I'm fasting Ramadan. Well, I have a different story. I was born and raised as a Christian. My mother is Catholic and my father is a Greek Orthodox. This makes me unique, not only on the NSL team, but also in Palestine. My family has had 14 generations of priests. Well, I'm sorry, but now they will miss a year. I'm not a priest. I'm a social entrepreneur. I have invented my first project, water management, to help the people in the West Bank to control and save the water. I'm a board member at the Palestinian Center for a Project Between People in Bethlehem, an ambassador for my university, Bethlehem University. I have been peace activist for the past of my life and co-found 2 other non-profit in the region. Well, for me as a young person, and I think for my teams here, my team member, my brothers and my sisters, Israeli and Palestinian, no matter what they believe in, Christian or Jewish or Muslim. But for me and for us, as a young people who believes and wants to create change, and that's why I'm here, because I believe in change, and I want to create change, and I want you to help me out with that. I'm here because I believe in education and media, as it plays a big role in the conflict of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So my project for change is to train young journalists Palestinian to know how to write their stories in English and Hebrew. For me as a Palestinian, Christian Palestinian, it's very important to be heard in the US, in Europe, and Israel. Thank you very much. Please, if you're really interested in my project, help me out with that. Contact me and give me your contact so we can stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Basil. Our next speaker is Asil Saeed.
Hello everyone, my name is Asil Saeed and I'm from Ramallah, Palestine. The first time I landed in the United States, it was in Dallas Airport. I was here as an exchange student with an organization called YES. I lived in San Antonio, Texas for a year. Go Spurs, go. I had a lot of fun, but I always had a story that a lot of people, whenever I come to them, they were like, what was the first time you felt like you had a culture shock? And I never thought about it. But now, after a while of living in the States, The first time I was in the States, I saw something I've never seen before. Something I've always heard about or read about. The first time I saw that thing, I was a little afraid. I thought it was gonna attack me, and I was very much terrified, at least from my part. August 2008 was the first time ever that I saw a squirrel. You might laugh, but this experience very much resembles NSL for me. I've always heard about the other side. I've always read about them. In so many ways, I created an entire story in my head, a stereotype of what they are, why are they there, and all these things. And the first week I came to NSL, it was another culture shock, but it's a culture shock that I'm still learning from every single day I spend with those people. They're very much inspiring, and in so many ways, the walls that I created in my head are starting to shatter down. I'm not saying everything, but you know, it's a really good start. Again, I live in Ramallah, Palestine. I've talked to some people and they've been there, so that's really exciting always. I'm double majoring in nutrition and business administration, about 2 hours away from here. I go to school in Virginia. So my project for change is I'm working with another Palestinian that's going to be talking. His name's Nader. And we're trying to really create a fitness and a boxing center in Ramallah, and that will be the first time ever to have at least a professional facility for boxing. And we both, for me, it's my passion to like help young people that really have the talent, but they don't have any of the resources to do something with sports. Because I've always thought that sports really does unite a lot of people, and it gets people under the same umbrella. And I have a very athletic family as well. So if you have any ideas about how we can help some young, very talented young girls and boys, of course, to help them with their sports in Palestine, please let me know. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Asil. Our next speaker is Natan Odenheimer from Jerusalem.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Natan Odenheimer. I am from Jerusalem, and I come from a religious family, so my father would be happy that I'm in a synagogue on Sunday. Rabbi Schnitzer said that one of the... Did I pronounce your name right? Where is he? Yeah. Good. That one of the problems is that Israelis and Palestinians, or Israelis and other Arabs from other Arab countries, do not interact or do not know each other at all. He's very much right. That's why when I finished my IDF service, the Israeli Army's Israel Defense Army service, I decided that I want to learn more. And last year, I decided to go study Arabic in Jordan. And I lived in Amman for about 2 months with an Arab Israeli, and I learned a lot. And I want to share 2 stories, very, very short anecdotes. One about my first night in Amman, and one about my first night coming back to Jerusalem. They're not the most inspiring, but in the end I'll tell you why I am optimistic after all. So in my first night in Amman, my friend Salah said that we must go downtown. So we took a taxi downtown Amman, and he started laughing in the cab. And I didn't understand why, but there was music on, and some older Arab man driving. When I asked him, what's going on, I said, I'm going to tell you later. Of course, in English. I didn't reveal my Israeli identity. So we get out of the cab, and I'm telling you, no, what's the story? Why were you laughing? He looks around to see that no one listens. And then he tells me in Hebrew, his Hebrew is pretty good, he tells me in Hebrew, the music on the cab was praises Hamas and called for the destruction of Israel. So, yeah, well, I have a weird sense of humor, so I thought it's funny as well. We both started laughing. But that's one thing that I discovered very well living in Jordan about how much hostility there is towards Israel. But not only hostility. After 2 months in Jordan, and coming back to Israel, I crossed the border back to Israel, and instead of taking a taxi to the nearest city, or actually town, and take a bus from there to Jerusalem, I decided to hitchhike back to Jerusalem. I like hitchhiking. I think it's a great way to meet interesting people, and I'm happy that I did, because a Jewish settler took me for a ride, and I learned a little bit about his point of view. And what he said, actually not to me, to another passenger, but he said something along the line of, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is going to be resolved. It's going to be resolved because we're in the same situation that the Israelites were coming from Sinai to the land of Israel. They just took them time to kick out all the tribe that were there. Now, swallowed my spit. It wasn't the first time that I heard such a thing, but it sounds very much familiar and sounds very similar to what I heard on my first night in Jordan. And then you can ask, okay, so what are you going to do with this? And for a very, very long time, anti-other side, can be anti-Israel or anti-Arab or anti-Palestinian, dictated what it meant to be Palestinian or dictated what it meant to be Israeli, dictated what is our national identity. But things are changing, and they're changing very, very slowly, and it's true that still the extremists of both sides control much of the discourse, and they're able to polarize it. Our job is to change that and to let the voices who are more sane and are really want to live side by side each other to be heard. Back, I think about 4 years ago, I was still in the army, and a friend visited me. Him and I were the last from our class to still be in the army. He was an officer, I was an NCO. It was like 2 a.m. Tomorrow, we both knew that we need to go back to the army. And an interesting fact about him, I can't tell you which one exactly, but his father is a hawkish, right-wing Israeli politician, very prominent. We're still friends. And he told me he was just back from 3 weeks serving in the West Bank, and he told me, Nathan, we cannot do that anymore. He's a settler too. He lives in a settlement all his life. And he told me, Nathan, it cannot continue. I didn't know what to say to him. That's what I would say to him usually. And it was quiet. And on that Saturday night, early Sunday morning, I really felt the earth moving. I felt it. That's why I'm optimistic, because the vast majority of Israelis still, despite everything that you hear, despite everything what you hear in the news, vast majority of Israelis, and I believe that also Palestinians, and I think one of my counterparts here can testify better, truly want to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We truly, truly want to resolve it. And I want to invite you to be the kind of people that can foster an environment that is not polarizing. Because we have to have a new discourse, a new conversation regarding those issues that is not dismissing the other, but inviting it to live side by side. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Natan. Speaking next will be Maizam Abumor from Gaza.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming here. My name is Maizam Abumor. I'm 23 years old, and I came straight from Gaza, Palestine. I'm a Palestinian Muslim woman. I'm an Arab with zero terrorist inclinations. Surprise, surprise. I came here because I have a different story, different from what you see and what you listen to on TV. Because your TV doesn't tell you what it's like to be a Gazan or Palestinian or Israeli in the real sense. And I think it's my responsibility to give you this true picture. I came here because I'm a normal person, and any normal person cannot operate in a conflict zone. Never, because conflict comes in the way of everything, every single thing. And I came here because it's the first time for me to see Israelis and squirrels. Yeah, they're cute. They're very cute. And Israelis too. They're nice. I came here because I believe that if you want to build peace, you can't build it from the roof. I know our governments are doing their best to do it, but they're building it from the roof, and it's our job to build it from the foundations, from the earth, the ground. We are the people, and we're the ones who are actually affected by the conflict. We're the ones who actually see the conflict and feel the conflict, not our governments. My project for change is, I thought of it because many Gazans would love to be here and tell you that they don't want conflict, they don't want to die, they don't want to throw rockets or receive any. They want you to know that they're pro-life, they're pro-peace, and they're pro-being normal, living a normal life. And I chose to give a voice for a Palestinian girl, another Palestinian girl who would love to be here, but she couldn't. And she wants to tell you what is it like to be a Gazan. And I'm translating her work into your mother tongue, English. And if you're willing to help us getting more stories from people, actual people, please contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maisam. Next we have Yarden Carney from Kibbutz Zarat.
Hi, hello, my name is Yarden Carney. I'm from Israel, 27 years old, just graduated my bachelor degree in politics and media from the Hebrew University. And I want to tell you just a small part of my story. I grew up in Kibbutz Zarat. The kibbutzim, as you may know, was a central part of the establishment of Israel. And when we get to 16 years old, we're moving out of our parents' home into our own apartment with our roommates from our classroom. I'm guessing here, at our age of 27, people are still living with their parents. But there it was 16. And you get to learn a lot about being independent, about understanding one another and helping the other. And then I recruited to the compulsory 3-year service in the spokesperson unit. When I finished, I decided I want to be politically and socially involved. And I'm coming from a very politically involved house. My father was involved in the Oslo agreements and later on in the Geneva Initiative. And I understand the importance of peace in our region for the prosperity of both our people. So I became involved in the student politics and in the Labour Party and tried to help bring some change. And that is also the reason why I came here on NSL, to meet for the first time Palestinians my age, to understand their story, to hear their stories, to understand what they think and how should we continue from here. And also to tell my story, to tell what I think and to show that there are moderate Israelis that do want peace and want to work together for it. And I hope our project, even if there will be just small changes and just a small bridge, they will also make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Yarden. Next we have Shruk Badir from Bethlehem.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Robert said, my name is Sharuk Badir. I'm from Bethlehem, Palestine. I'm 19 years old. I am currently a student at Bryn Mawr College in Pennsylvania. I study chemistry, physics, but because I'm Palestinian, I also minor in international studies. I grew up 20 minutes away from Jerusalem in an occupied territory with about 4.2 million people under occupation with no right of self-determination. My mom comes from a destroyed Palestinian village. Her family had to move in 1948 into what became the Dheisheh refugee camp. My first time meeting a Palestinian from Gaza was halfway across the world. It was here, in your country. Just like Asil said, during my junior year of high school, I also participated in the U.S. Department of State exchange program. I spent 1 year of high school in Atlanta, Georgia. After I came back to my country, I was supposed to attend my Palestinian high school. Instead, I dropped off and I decided to embark on a journey of self-discovery and getting to know the other side. I applied to the American International School in Israel and I stayed with an American host family. During this 1 year of high school, I went through a huge transformation after I got to know the Israeli narrative. I recall during the second month of my year in Israel, as I was invited to a kibbutz in the north of Israel. It was my friend's birthday from Poland. We went to the kibbutz, and around midnight, my friend and I decided to go around the kibbutz. It was my first time visiting a kibbutz, as you might imagine. And we came across a group of Israeli students who were getting ready to go to the army. I was introduced to them. They asked me where I came from. I felt a little unsafe at midnight. And so I said, I come from Atlanta, Georgia. Our conversation turned to be focused on the Israel-Palestine conflict. And one Israeli student looked at me and he said, I don't think you should go and visit the West Bank. And I simply asked why. And he looked at me and he said, they're different. In fact, Palestinian females look nothing like you. I was shocked, and from that moment, I knew and I realized that it was my role to build bridges of understanding between the two communities. They're so close, but they're so apart at the same time. Just as Maysam said, the politicians and what's happening on the actual ground is hopeless. You could imagine the increasing number of settlements and also the wall, what happens from the Hamas side as well. And so I joined the NSL program to meet Israelis who would like to make a difference. I'm working with Koral Kasira from Zichron Yaakov to build the first after-school program in Bethlehem to give students who mainly come from refugee camps the same experience that I once had to get to know the Israeli side. We're trying to link an Israeli and a Palestinian high school together and teach Palestinian students about leadership skills to make a difference in their communities. This is why I'm here. And thank you very much for listening to our stories.
Thank you, Sharuk. Next we have Koral Kasira from Zichron Yaakov.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Koral Kasira and I'm from Zichron Yaakov. It's a town near Haifa in Israel. I'm 24 years old and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I have a degree in anthropology and law from the University of British Columbia in Canada. My family moved to Canada following the Second Intifada in the year 2007, out of concern for our safety, my sister and myself. They only moved because of us. They were not very young when they moved. They're in their 40s, so I really appreciate them for the sacrifices they have made for us. I also want to thank you, the congregation here, for inviting us to speak today. The partnership that Bradley Hills Presbyterian Church has created with the Bethesda Jewish congregation, I think is inspirational, and it reflects today's culturally and religiously diverse world. Okay, so in NSL, I'm interning for the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs. This was a bit of a culture shock for me, being an Israeli and coming into a very pro-Palestinian magazine. Our office has wonderful people. It also has Palestine flags all over. And this is something I'm really not used to seeing coming from Israel and also living in Canada. So after my first day, I started asking myself if I was in the right place, because I didn't know if that was an environment that I should necessarily be in out of kind of obligation for the values that I've grown up with. And the next day, I kind of thought this through again, and I realized that I'm right where I should be. Because I've always had this fascination with everything strange, everything unknown, and I really like to learn. So in my work at the magazine, I like to probe, I like to ask questions, and I really enjoy expanding my horizons. So it's been a treat to be in the magazine, speaking to the other interns, and just learning more about myself and about the politics. Here at NSL, I've been hearing very interesting stories that I hadn't been exposed to before. Very interesting individuals with stories that don't really make news headlines. People with either traumas or just really unique histories in their parents. So that's been a very interesting experience for me. In the past few years, I've been an advocate for Israel on my campus and for human rights, and I participated in several peace programs, and I'm really proud to represent Israel and educate others about it, coming from there. I joined NSL because I feel that there is still a lot out there that I want to learn. I wanted to hear personal stories of Palestinians and not just hear about it in the news or hear about it from other people. And so here I got to meet young leaders, and they're all passionate and they're educated and they're very hopeful and they want to see change. Because we've been talking a lot about in the past 4 weeks, and we're really fed up with what is happening in the Middle East. And we really don't want to see the same mistakes that were in the past to be repeated again. So as young people, we want to lead and educate others about how to solve the conflict. And I think that begins with getting to know each other and talking about the hard topics and not just avoiding them because they're uncomfortable or because of preconceptions that we've had. So my passion, as I said before, is about educating young people, and therefore Shuruk and I are creating after-school programs for underprivileged youth in Bethlehem, the West Bank. This is really, for me, a step out of my comfort zone, as I mentioned before about the magazine, because as an Israeli, you grow up with this sort of commitment to your community and to the values and to the sacrifices that your grandparents made to be in Israel. And so our Project for Change will definitely target refugee kids, because the refugee kids in the Bethlehem area don't get as many opportunities as I received being an Israeli, and also as that American kids receive here in the US. There's not really any after-school program in existence, so that's where we come in, and that's the change that we want to make. And we want to inspire kids and empower them by teaching them leadership skills and having them improve their communities by doing community service and volunteering. And these programs will create safe, creative, and fun environments for these kids and keep them out of trouble and out of the streets. And yeah, that's my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Coral. Next we have Naor Bitan from Ashdod.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for having us. We're very proud and thankful for all of you coming together on a Sunday. For us, I'm Naor Bitan, I'm 27 years old. I'm from Ashdod, Israel. It's actually 20 miles south to Tel Aviv, right on the Mediterranean coast, and it's 25 miles north to Gaza. Yeah, and my son is, I think, only the second Gazan I ever meet, and I have a lot of friends from Tel Aviv. And this transformed the idea that we don't get to meet Palestinians a lot. And I'm a politician in a way. Since I finished my army service, I led a youth group back in Ashdod who tried to make some social change in our city, helping underprivileged kids and underprivileged residents and changing reality. And that's what I am. I'm a changer. I see frameworks and I want to break them. I see something that has been done for ages and it's not right, and I want to change it. And I also co-established a political party in Ashdod like 6 months ago before I came on this program. And I have aspiration to take part in political leadership in Israel in the future. And that's why I came on NSL. Because I believe that I need to meet those faces. I need to meet those people for me to be a better leader, and for me also to know what a leader means in the Middle East. And I wanna talk actually about, a lot of people ask me here, so Noor, what are you? And I'm saying, I'm a Jew, I'm Jewish. And then they ask me, what do you do to be Jewish? And I say, I live in Israel. That's about it. And they say, but, and they don't understand sometimes. And then I say, you know, I'm a cultural Jew. And a cultural Jew for me means that I appreciate the Jewish culture. I appreciate the only place, I think, that brings the Jewish culture to the center of the stage. And part of being a cultural Jew is understanding cultural heritage. My dad was born in Morocco and lived there until he was 15. And my mom was born in Algeria. And she lived there until she was 5, and then they moved to France before she came to Israel when she was 18. And cultural Jews actually means living with other people for a long period of time. How Jews survive for so long without getting along with everyone. And that's what it means to me to be a cultural kind of a Jew, to want to know the other, to believe in that knowing the other actually means that you stay Jewish. And that's what I think we're doing here. I think that this is as Jew as I can get. Just by being with other guys, other women that are Palestinians. And, you know, sometimes a lot of people say, there are 10 of you. The rabbi mentioned it. There are 10 of you. But all the stories we believe in all 3 religions, in other religions also, it's a personal, individual story. We see, the first thing I came here, I saw Moses right there. And I thought, maybe it was Jesus, maybe it's the prophet. And those are people who changed the world, and there were one. We read their stories every week, and we never stop and think, whoa, there were one. So 10 people is not a spit in the ocean. 10 people is the last spit that will create a wave. Because behind us there's a lot of stories, and there's so much ideology that brought us to this place. We are the end result in some way of a lot of power. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, my dad would never sit there. Never. And he is just like me. But I'm here, and that means a change is there. So when you see this kind of program, NSL, for me it's amazing. For me, it's something that can't be stopped, and you can push it forward. Because this is the way change is created. You know, when you see a president saying something on a podium, you can't believe that, 8 years ago, it's probably him and 4 of his advisors talking about how can we win America. But that's probably the way it used to be. And today he stands and talking to millions. So that's how I see changes happening. And I want to thank you guys for having us, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Naor. Next we have Nader Jayusi from Ramallah.
Great listeners. I know you guys are looking brothers and sisters. They ganged up against the champ. But I'm doing fine. I'm gonna get it back. I'm gonna get my payback. Don't worry. Yeah, I'm Nader. I'm from a small village in the north of West Bank called Jayus, a village that had 70% of its lands eaten by the apartheid wall. Well, Paul trapped us today. We are not prepared at all. Well, actually, we're lazy. He didn't try. But since we're here to talk about the narrative, so I'm going to talk about my life flashes. The first flash is first time I cheated death. Not a good start, I know. But that was in Iraq. It was under the American bombing for Baghdad in 1991 when Saddam Hussein broke into Kuwait. I think you all know the story. We were supposed to go to the Al-Amriya shelter, and that's where I lived in Baghdad, in Al-Amriya. And my dad changed his mind in the last moment, and he said, no, we're going to our friends. And at the same night, a bomb hit the core of the shelter and demolished it. Nobody got out alive. The second flash is why I was in Iraq. My hero is my dad. He was leading a camp of free Palestinian fighters who believed in the right of resistance. So the second flash is remembering the camp my dad used to lead. Third flash, coming back to the homeland after Oslo Agreement. You all know the story. Listening to the Palestinian anthem. Starting to learn about Palestine more and more. More flashes. Protesting against the apartheid wall. Having my classmate, Hussein Abu Ras, rest in peace, next to me. And I assure you, he wasn't throwing any rocks. And all of a sudden, bang, I don't see the guy. He gets a bullet right here that splits his brain in half and falls down next to me. Another flash is on the blockade of Yasser Arafat. I see an Israeli man, peace activist, going with a group of Israeli activists to break the blockade on Yasser Arafat. And when he gets interviewed, the interviewer asked him, why? Why are you here? I mean, Yasser Arafat, Israelis don't like him. And he said, I don't care if Israelis don't like him. I lost a son in a suicide bombing in Israel. And I don't think there's anything worth it to lose another son. I don't think there's anything worth it to lose another man or woman or a kid for this conflict. Let's all live in peace together. Another flash is when I finished my high school. And it gets so easy, especially that I finished my high school around 2004, which is a very good period for people to go the terrorism or resistance or education way. And it's so easy. You'll get people offering you to start trading weapons with them, and I got that. I hope you guys don't tell anyone about this while I'm coming back home. But anyway, and I always thought about boxing. So in a way or another, I started boxing at the same period. And I was literally a kid who came from the street. My school, the refugee camp I lived at, no chances were available. Boxing gave me the chances. Boxing took me from street. Boxing taught me how to be a real man, how to serve my country. Boxing pushed me to come to NSL 2013. And I want to start a boxing program for the kids of Palestine to do the same thing, to take him from street, to make him learn how to serve their country. So that's why I'm trying to get Asil to help me on this. She's doing a great job. Trying to start a boxing program for the kids of Palestine, where I'm going to give scholarships for refugee kids to box at the gym we're gonna build, and we're gonna connect it with education. So I hope all of you approve what we're trying to do. Even if you can't help, I just would love to have you approving it. And the last flash is the current flash. I see people my dad's age, Naur's age, Naur's dad's age, But just because he said my dad wouldn't sit here 50 years ago, and that's right, I agree. But now they're all sitting here. I see you all, Jews, Muslims, and some Christians. And I salute you all of you who witnessed the prime of this conflict. You all are here believing in us. Thanks for believing in us. You guys are pushing us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Nader. Last and by no means least, we have Galreich.
Hi everybody. Thank you, Robert, for pronouncing my last name so nice. I know it's not easy. So, my name is Gal. I'm 25 years old. I born and lived in the city of Hadera, a city that suffered from a lot of terror attacks. I served in the IDF, the compulsory service. But this is not really my story. My story is a story of 10 years being a peace activist. My story is a story of doing dialogue with Palestinians, doing 1 year of voluntary service in a peace organization before the army. And you ask yourself, how is it that I'm not 30? Because I combined all of it. And during my service at the army, I consider myself also a peace activist. And I want to share with you two little stories from my service in the army. I'm sure you heard about caste-led operation in Gaza. I served as a soldier. I wasn't in Gaza, but I was a soldier. And because I was a commander and I could go wherever I want without no one asking me where I go, I went to hear a lecture from Gershon Baskin, who some of you might hear of it. He spoke about the negotiations with Hamas, he spoke about Gilad Shalit, he spoke about what he heard from people in Hamas during the war. And I just went to hear the lecture because I felt that I have to. So my soldiers were there doing their job and I was there in the lecture. But after the operation ended, because we were a film unit, I was thinking that I should share some of the experience with my soldiers as well. So I brought a filmmaker who made a film that's called 1 Million Bullets in October, and you can understand from the name that it speaks about the Second Intifada. And this filmmaker showed this movie and spoke with my soldiers about his experience. So I think that I tried to combine my army service with a little bit of peace activism, and I think it's very important. It shows a little bit of the complexity in life in Israel. However, to connect a little bit to what's happening here, we're at the church and synagogue and everything. My occupation, not this kind of occupation, what I do for a living is I'm a video editor, and I was working on a TV series for Christians about the holy sites in Israel. And our office was in the old city of Jerusalem, a place that a lot of pilgrims are coming to see and visit, the Holy Sepulchre and all the other holy sites. So we were sitting there and we see all of literally millions of pilgrims coming on the streets and watching all these nice places. And in a way, I think that when we are coming here, we're doing a little bit of pilgrimage. It's not that I think that the capital is the Holy Sepulchre. But there is something really, really holy about us as a group coming together to a place. And like the pilgrims are coming from United States and Russia and Rome, and they would never meet each other unless they were there on a pilgrimage. There is something that unites them all, and this is religion. And I think that we are some kind of religious people because we believe in something that unites us, and this is why we're doing our little pilgrimage to here. And in a way, I want to speak a little bit about NSL and why it's different from all what I've been doing in 10 years. I think it's really different. We are so driven. We want to create a real change. We don't want to just discuss and speak. And I know that some of us will never agree on what's happened in the past. We had a little agreements about it. But we are so determined about the future. We know what we want. And this is what we are focusing at. And our project for change, Natan's and Yarden is working. We're creating an application that will let people discuss some kind of what I did in the army, letting people see a little bit of the other side. It's going to be anonymous. It's going to be related to the conflict and also other subjects like fashion or sports. We want people to interact in a way, and we think that anonymously it will be better. And
It's an iPhone app.
yes, it's an iPhone app. So, thank you. So I think NSL is really different from what I was doing. For 10 years, it helped me a lot to speak with Palestinians and to understand their narrative. But I think that NSL is all about how our future gonna be and not how our past was. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for your kind attention. We're now going to be moving into the question and answer section of the panel. The way this is going to work is just raise your hand and I'll acknowledge you. Once again, I'd like to remind everyone that these students are not representing the PLO, Hamas, IDF, or the Knesset, and are not necessarily qualified to speak on political issues unless outside of their personal experience. Also, if I can ask if everyone can please try to keep their questions as short as possible. We only have about 15 minutes for questions, and we'd like to be able to get through as many of them as we can. There will be an opportunity afterwards at the food reception outside for people to be able to speak one-on-one. So, sir. Yeah, you, sir.
My question is, to each side, what one small thing could either the Israelis or Palestinians do to show a willingness to proceed toward peace?
Toward peace.
Hi, I'm Israeli and I can speak from my own perspective and a big Israeli perspective as well. I think the acknowledgement that Palestinians have a right for a state is a first step to achieving peace, because in the past there wasn't even any acknowledgement that Palestinians do deserve a state, and I thought that the occupation was legitimate, it should continue. So I think I can speak for myself and also for the other Israelis here that we do acknowledge that there's a need for a state for Palestinians to have a state and to have their own autonomy. So I see that as a first step for peace.
Well, one of you has to answer.
Never happened.
Thank you, Carl. I think that's a really good idea, by the way. What I think as a Palestinian, what would be a good step to start a peace process is also to recognize that Natan said this a number of times as well, and in his article, he wrote an article, by the way, the idea that we're stuck with them, they're stuck with us, and I'm not giving away 65 years of stories when I say that he deserves to live in a place that he can call a homeland as well. But what I'm doing is I'm recognizing that as much as I want to be in a place where I can call Palestine and drive around and enjoy my friend's company, he should be also able to do the same thing. So another recognition would be a good way to start peace.
So I think you asked about small thing. So the small thing I think is that we as people will back up our governments. I think sometimes our governments get really close to sign the deal. It happened almost 17 times. But the problem is that no government really feels that you have the support of the people, and that scares me, because if they can agree and they are afraid that the people want the peace,
this is why what we're doing is important, because in a way we are saying that the foundations are there, the foundations will be there. Just sign the deal and we will do the rest. And